Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and this is Charlie.
Hiya!
And welcome to It's a Charlie Thing. Today we're in a little bit of a disarray. The room has been rearranged because of the builders last week. But Charlie, what have we got in store for them this week?
So this week we've got our usual book to screen adaptation chat, which leads into our main thing, which is going to be talking about, as the new Bridgerton's been released, we're going to be giving you books to recommend if you like that show, or even if you don't like that show, there's going to be something
Even
there
if
for
you've
you,
never
I'm sure.
watched that show.
Even if you've never watched that show, there are books that will be good for you. And then we've also got our usual bookish news, along with currently reading and our happy moments.
Just a regular week of It's a Charlie Thing.
How are you, Charlie?
Oh, that was going to be my question for you. I am fine. I am not as grumpy as I spent last week being. Charlie got to hear all of my grumpy, grisly messages whilst everything was going on with the builders last week. And
You had quite the week.
I did. Things were supposed to happen that didn't happen. And eventually it's ended with my room only having half a wall replastered when it was supposed to be the entire room. However,
That is not okay.
I might be over it. I can't say that for sure. Charlie knows that I hold grudges. Most people know I hold grudges at this point in time because even though I say I get over things, generally I remember something based on how somebody wronged me in that year. So
I hope they fix it.
I hope they fix it too, because currently I have a crack in the plaster in my room right above where they fixed. And I have a front garden full of their rubbish, including enough plasterboard that they could have put up. Like it's plasterboard anyway. See, I was ready to rant again. I'm clearly not as fine as I said, but I'm not as grumpy and grisly as I was. So we're somewhere. We're a little bit tense. Like, it's one of those where, like, I'll be over it and then I'll think about it again and immediately head back in.
I think that's a normal response. If you've been angered by something, the mere mention of it can get you feeling those feelings
I'm
again.
basically in a week of continuous ranting now. Like, literally, I think my family might be purchasing headphones just so that they don't have to listen to my diatribes.
You can talk away to me about it. It's fine.
And I have done.
I know. No, so
Anyway,
you've been ranty, and I've been again. For me, last week I was poorly again, which is just annoying. And I'm sure everybody at this point at the beginning of the year is getting continuous bugs, and it is very depressing and annoying. But we move. This is a fresh week. Me and you, we'll be okay.
Yeah. When we turn over a leaf, it's the same leaf, but we're gonna do something.
Yeah, this is going to be. This is we're here for all the good energy this week. So yeah.
Charlie really said good vibes only.
I didn't say vibes. I tried not to say vibes. I deliberately tried to avoid that word. Charlie hates vibes.
There are many things
Charlie.
that I hate as I become this incredibly incorrigible, grumpy old man. Yesterday, a customer came into the shop. One of my volunteers has known him for a long time. She told me he's 93 years old, and this volunteer told me he used to be a policeman. And I said, that makes sense. He has the standing of a policeman. It's not like nowadays where they seem to let anybody in. I've become that person. I'm just so cantankerous, and part of me wonders, like, is it like the continuous thing of the fact that I was brought up around so many elderly people, as I've talked about before. My nan's aunties and uncles were around a lot when I was a child, so I was surrounded by people who were in their 70s and 80s. Is that what's turned me into the person I am today? Or have I always just been this grumpy old man, and as I age, it's just going to worsen?
I don't think you're as grumpy as you think, and I like those qualities about you, that you've got like a bit of an old soul. You definitely have a bit of an old
that's
soul.
good. That's going to get us through.
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry, Charlie. Let's kick off.
Should we
with
go right
whatever we're kicking off
into the
with
video?
today.
So we're going to start with the fact that as we're speaking, the Women's Prize for Nonfiction, which obviously I've been talking about the Women's Prize a lot because it's one of my favourite things every year, and that is literally being released tomorrow morning as we speak. I am so excited. The Nonfiction Prize last year was such a highlight, as I keep banging on about. If you're watching this and you want to join me and my lovely friend Jen are going to be live on my YouTube channel, so I'll link that in the description. at 7:30 p.m. We're going to be live over on YouTube on my channel. So if you want to join us and have a chat about all of the listed books, you can. It's just going to be fun to hear our thoughts. It's the thing tomorrow.
Charlie already knows this. I won't be there because I will
what's your
be
thing?
starting the tour of Stockport Libraries again, and that is also on Wednesday, the 11th of February at 6:30 at Cheadle-Hulme Library. Myself
So if you want to
and
join us,
my right friend Margaret Holbrook are going to be reading from our crime novels and chatting all things crime fiction. So I've already sent my apologies to Charlie for the reason that I won't be there. But
if you're in the Stockport area,
feel free to join me, and I'll be done by 7:30. So as soon as I'm finished, you can hop onto the YouTube app on your phone and you start watching.
Yeah, go for it.
I won't be doing that because I'll be driving home.
Yeah, which is a hot minute away. The next bit of bookish news is that the British Book Awards have announced its judges, literally. And so on the list, we've got there's lots and lots of judges because obviously it's many categories. And
they should have asked me. I'm a very judgmental person.
So am I. Don't worry. So among the judges, I'll just name like a few. And we've got Prue Leith, who obviously is the Bake Off or previous Bake Off judge. I don't know whether she's quit not coming back for the future season, which had Belle at arms, which she was very upset. And then also you've got Oti Mabuse, who is just amazing. And then lastly, well not lastly, because like I said, there are multiple other judges. But most excitingly, we've got Eric Carl Anderson is going to be one of the judges.
I saw that this morning. Exciting. It is decidedly thrilling.
I'll put in a link in the description to the British Book Awards website. So if you want to check out all the other judges, you can.
Yeah, I hear these things and I'm like, I understand it. These people are much kinder than me. It'd be, like... No, I mean, when it comes...
I don't think that's true.
Well, I think they're generally people who might be looking for the good things in a book. Meanwhile, I'm over here like...
What does
you said that happened in 1966 and it didn't, so that's it, you're not winning.
But what does Prue Leith look for in a book? That's my question.
I mean, she's written a lot of fiction.
Has she?
Yeah.
What kind of fiction has Prue Leith written?
She's written more than a dozen novels alongside all of her recipe books and everything.
I am shocked. I did not know this.
At least she's listed as the author. I've not checked whether
Charlie's so cynical. Charlie's like she's been ghostwritten.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying at the moment, I believe, we get her novels into the shop, but I have never checked to see whether she wrote them herself or whether she had a ghostwriter, that sort of thing. But and that's what I'm saying is, I'm being kind this time. I'm actually being generous and saying that is perhaps the reason that she has to judge. Really, I think one of the only categories, the things that you really need to fall into if you are judging a competition, a prize, one of those things. If you're a reader and you've been reading your entire life, you know what works and doesn't work in fiction. That surely qualifies you to be a judge.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't mean you have to be a writer or anything like that. But that is interesting. So if anyone's listening has read any of her books, let us know in the comments. That's always good. And particularly if you've enjoyed them and if you've got any recommendations for us, because we're all here for that. So another bit of bookish news is that I was looking up today was apparently Stormzy has been in the news, and he is calling reading a superpower because it's all about he's talking specifically he's backing the Accessible Books campaign, the campaign that comes out where they give obviously they give the book tokens, which is a thing that's been given for ages, but specifically he's talking about the quick book reads where they come out and they're £1 each. So obviously people can use their book tokens to then buy a book, and it's making books accessible. Stormzy is he known as what widely still? Does he still? I'm so not knowing about music.
I'm so glad you said this because I had absolutely no idea. The only thing I know about Stormzy is that one song he did with Little Mix. I think it was him. And
either which way, he's advocating for this, which I think is a good thing because we were talking about books with children and. Obviously, the year of reading thing that's the big campaign, and he's part of that big campaign as well.
If it wasn't for book vouchers, I wouldn't have had many. Well, I didn't have many books growing up, but that was definitely one of the things that made it possible for me to get books in this house.
Yeah, there's libraries for me. Like we definitely didn't get new books. We never, very, very rarely got new books.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. This was like the rare occasion I would get a book because I got the
those pound
token.
ones.
Yeah.
we didn't. Those obviously, I'm like 10 years older than you. Those £1 books weren't available when I was younger. But I think it's such a great concept, and it's good to have some big names backing these campaigns. And the next thing I'm going to talk about is book to screen adaptations.
Oh, okay.
I still haven't seen the Hamnet adaptation. I'm desperate to try and go and see that because obviously it was poorly last week, so I couldn't go and see it with my friend. Hopefully I will see that coming week. But I did watch the Seven Dials mystery, which I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. The cast, I thought it was really, really good because obviously we've got Helena Bonham Carter, and you've also got
you said Martin Freeman last week.
Martin Freeman, yeah, and he is playing the detective. But what I didn't realise was he's playing, I think it's Superintendent Battle.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've read a book, Towards Zero. He's a detective in Towards Zero. So that is a book I read relatively recently. Well, I read it last year, but I'm not reading as much this year. So to me, that's quite recent. I loved that book, and I loved the character of Superintendent Battle in it. And seeing the character on screen was really, really good. It had some comedic elements as well as some serious elements. But I know you were worried about it being like the darker element. I definitely feel like it shifts more, I would say, more lighter to me.
It was more like the tone of the recent BBC adaptations has felt very somber, and even to the way that they would colour the show and like that sort of thing would give it this very sinister atmosphere. So that was what I was concerned about.
To me, it didn't. I mean, there were moments, obviously, that were tense, but it's a crime show, so it flowed really, really well. It felt really, really interesting. I was very engaged, and it's over multiple episodes. I can't remember how many episodes.
I thought it was a film.
It does. It's very cinematic because obviously Netflix adaptation.
Yeah,
I'm hoping because at the end of it, it sort of alludes it might be a series. So
you're hoping that we might get more of the Inspector Battle stuff.
I would love that.
Superintendent Battle, isn't it? Yeah.
I would be so it's made me excited. So
okay,
yeah. So that's one.
I might take a watch then.
One that's coming up, so I've got some there's another up and coming one, for anyone that's interested. Museum of Innocence, which is an adaptation of the Orhan Pamuk. Yeah, have you read it?
I have.
Aha, yay, it's an actual book that you've read. Sorry.
No, it's like, coincidentally, when I was removing all of the books from my shelves last week, I couldn't decide whether to like donate this book to a charity shop or not. So it's still in a box in my mum's room. I have absolutely no idea how they were going to have adapted this flaming book, though. It's a huge behemoth of a book.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a series again, from what I've looked at, and it's coming out February 13th. So as we're listening, literally a few days away. So yeah, and it's apparently, well, you can, as you've read the book, you can say about the book if you wish to. If you don't remember it.
Well, I liked Pamuk's language. I can remember something about this woman that he was in love with, and like. The cultivating of the museum was a bit of an odd one in that it seems to give off this idea that like, at some points you're walking through a museum and getting to see all of the things related to this relationship that the protagonist had. When you're reading it, you can often forget that the character is supposed to be like leading you through a museum because so much of it feels like this fictionalized biography of their love.
So what I've seen from the book blurb, the book blurb says a deeply moving portrait of a torturous love affair that shows Istanbul in all its complex beauty. And so that's for the book. So I can imagine the screen adaptation. I can see why it has then been turned into a screen adaptation. And that sounds amazing. So yeah, I'm very, very excited for that. That's definitely one that's going to be on my list to watch as it's on Netflix, like I said.
Well, now I know about it, I might take a look, though. Like I say, I have absolutely no idea how they're going to adapt it. It's just,
huge.
It is. And, you know, as it says, complex. There's so much about the history in there, as well as it does that thing that I always say about when it comes to historical fiction and it comes to writing history, is you aren't wanting to focus on the politicians. You don't want to focus on the main events. You focus on the people who are experiencing those events. That's what you get. So it'll be interesting. It will be very interesting to see how they've done this one.
Will you actually watch it? You have to let us know in the future.
Oh, you know that it's going to be about 20 years before I watch it.
Again, if anyone's listening that wants
I'll probably forget it by next week.
The last one I'm going to touch on is one that I've actually been watching recently. Is obviously the biggest one which is the whole theme of the episode, is Bridgerton. So the latest series 4 of Bridgerton has come out. The books, for those of you that don't know, basically it's following the Bridgerton family. and their love lives. Also, they do cover some deeper themes. But this one is following Benedict and his romantic entanglement with a character called Sophie Beck. It's basically a Cinderella retelling because Sophie is a maid/servant in the house, even though she's obviously got a bit more of a backstory than that. Their love is forbidden. They meet at a party at the beginning of the show, and I was really enjoying it. This is the part one has released. The part two doesn't get released till, so as we're watching it again, it's only a couple of weeks away. We haven't got long to wait for the second part. I haven't read the books, so all I can comment on is the show, but I enjoyed it. It was really good.
I ain't never did seen it, and I ain't doing any plans to do that now.
You're not a big fan of, you don't want...
I'm not making any plans to watch it. I will leave it at that. I know that my sister has watched it. I can't remember whether she enjoyed it or not. I know, as I say about many things, this show has its fans.
I do.
I don't need to be one of them.
I'm rewatching the show now. Now I've watched the new season. I've gone back and
surprised
rewatching.
About that.
Yeah. My big sister has read the books and is watching the adaptations as well. So she can probably comment on it. It might be something that I would head to possibly. Again, I'm not really reading much this year, so we'll see how I feel. That leads nicely into today's theme, which is we're going to talk about if you like Bridgerton. We've got some books to recommend, haven't we?
Well, yeah, but let's be specific here.
Well, we've got some Cinderella retellings. Yeah, we've got some Cinderella retellings.
Because this series was based on Cinderella, we've got Cinderella retellings, and we've also got class. So 3 and 3.
Those are the big themes in this season. So what's your first book, Charlie?
When Charlie first mentioned Cinderella retellings to me, I immediately thought of 2. And these were very popular young adult novels when I had first started out on YouTube. The first one is one that I'm mentioning because I remember following this book's publication journey. And this was from when the author had their own blog with another bunch of writers. And the book had a different title. And I was very excited for this book and bought it. Bought 2 of the sequels without reading the first one, which meant that I'd had it on my shelves for 3 years before I got around to it. And after all that time, I ended up not enjoying it. But I think it's still a very big Cinderella retelling, and I think that the series did end up moving away from that towards the end. But that is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas.
I've never read any Sarah J. Maas.
Yeah, when I first heard about this book, it was originally called Queen of Glass. The whole thing behind the book was what if Cinderella became an assassin?
Oh, okay.
And so before the book, they released 4 novellas. Didn't read those. And then it seemed like it was planned to be this trilogy that would follow this idea of Cinderella and that sort of thing. And I did feel like at times there were almost Disney elements to it. But, again, hugely popular series. I've tried the author's other books. Not for me. She has her fans. I wonder whether my dislike at the book was because I moved away from reading young adult books at that time. And so I wonder whether my tastes had just changed by the time it got around to reading this book. But it's one of the hugely popular Cinderella retellings that I could think of. What was yours?
This book, Cinderella is Dead. This is a book recommended to me by my eldest. That's why I picked it up, even though actually I did really enjoy it. So this is obviously another Cinderella retelling, but this is queer. So we're setting a dystopic world where it's like the legend of Cinderella is a presence. Main characters have to wed princes. They go to this ball and they have to be picked. And if they're not picked, they're cast aside from society. And again, there's another cast aside from society thing. In this book, we meet Sophia. She's not happy with the system and she's got a girlfriend. She doesn't want to take part in this ritual that's in this world. And she's very much rebelling against it. It's her journey and what happens to her. Again, I'm trying not to spoil it too much. Yeah, this is a queer retelling and diving into that Cinderella story. And it's very, very exciting and it's very, very good. It's very adventureful. It's very page-turnery. And I actually really enjoyed it.
Final Cinderella retelling is one that I have just donated the entire series to a charity shop because I thought it was a fantastic series when I first read it, and I decided that I didn't want to mar my memory of the series. But the first book was Cinder by Marissa Meyer, which is obviously the first book in the Lunar Chronicles. And I read these just before I started BookTube, and then the final book came out within 2 months of me being on the platform. I very much enjoyed this take on Cinderella as a cyborg and the way that Marissa Meyer twisted the fairy tale throughout that book and then into all of the subsequent titles that dealt with different fairy tale characters reimagined into this futuristic world. I read the first 3 books over a period of 3 days. The third one I can remember saying was the best penultimate book in a series. It does everything that you want a book to do leading into a big finale.
What's the penultimate book again?
So it went Cinder, Scarlet, Cress, and Winter.
Yeah, Cress is good. I like Cress.
So it's been 10 years and I was clearing my room and I decided that I don't want to mar the memory of that book by rereading them and then finding that I don't like them anymore. I donated them to the charity shop. They sold that day, so there's absolutely no way I can regret it or get them back. And I'm at peace with that. And I just think
it's a great series.
A very good series, yeah.
I even recommended it. I passed because I had the series on my shelves. I read it. I read this was a series huge in BookTube back in 2018, 2019 when we both began. Well, when I began BookTube.
Yeah, I read it in 2015. Just saying.
Okay. So it was still big back in even. When I started.
I just wanted to reiterate when I read it.
You were the trendsetter. So
no,
yeah, I passed
a very long time ago. For me.
I passed 10 years ago. I passed the series on to my mum, over 10 years ago. I passed the series on to my mum and she really loved those books. So I feel like that series has got wide appeal. Again, it's very YA, but there's nothing wrong with that at all. And those are books that you can kind of read and not really constant. Like you don't have to. They're not big thinkers, are they? So,
they have the action and adventure that a person can crave at a certain time.
Yeah,
is what I would
dive into it. Page turn, exciting, kind of similar to Cinderella's Dead. Even though this does have like slightly deeper themes, but yeah. Right.
Now, I suppose we move on to Class. Charlie's got 2 books on Class for us, and I've just got the one.
So the first book is actually one that Charlie was going to pick as well.
That might be why I only have one.
Yeah. And this is Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. I've got multiple copies of this book. This is obviously a favourite. Like, it will be one I happily revisit, as I'm sure that you will as well.
Yeah.
And we follow, it's Pip, isn't it?
It is Pip.
Yes, we follow Pip in this book, and it's Dickens' classic rags to riches kind of story.
That is how I described it to you when we were talking about this book, yes. You and I buddy read it a few years ago.
Yes, we did. And we both listened to different audiobooks, which I listened to. So the audiobooks are amazing. Who narrated the one that you listened to?
Martin Jarvis. I listened to Martin Jarvis.
And I listened to the one narrated by Matt Lucas. So they were brilliant. But this book features one of my favourite antagonists. Would you call him Abel Magwitch?
I knew you were going Magwitch, yeah.
I love him. He's like one of my favourite bookish characters. He's sort of got like a little bit of, it starts when you kind of have this like villainesque feel to him. Again, he's kind of deeper than that. He's actually really lovable. He's kind of like a lovable rogue, I think you'd describe him, wouldn't you? And I feel like this is quite an accessible book, even though it's a classic. Lots of people can be intimidated by classics, but this is a good one to kind of start with, I would say.
That is a good entry point into reading Victorian literature. I'd say that about most of the Victorian literature that's written in the first person.
This one's not too long either, I say, because for Dickens, obviously Dickens can sometimes head up to like the 1,000-page mark. This is less than 600. It's sort of 500-ish pages.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But it moves rather quickly as well.
My second book is The Trouble with Mrs. Montgomery Hurst. That's quite a mouthful.
It really is.
By BookTube's Katie Lumsden. This book, set in the summer of 1841 in the fictional county of Wickenshire. And we're following a large cast of characters, all of which are very, very different, set in this Jane Austen-esque, Bridgerton-esque world. And there is scandal. The character of Mr. Montgomery Hurst has returned to the village. He is a character who was this big eligible bachelor. So many people in the village were hoping to get their daughters married off to him. When he returns to the village, he is married, which is obviously why the title. And scandal ensues. Again, we're following the main character of Amelia, who wants to defy the expectations set upon her. And yeah, this book again talks about class. It's a very delightful book, I would say. It's full of joy. It's a very joyful book. It's very easy to escape into this world.
I was just going to say that if you have followed Katie's channel on BookTube or you've seen any interviews with her as well, you'll know that she's a fan of Anthony Trollope. And I think that this book really captures the sense of scandal and village gossip that you would see in Trollope's novels. And is one of those very good books of capturing a community as opposed to focusing on one character and seeing what all these different people feel about all of those around them. There's a lot of
The
gossip
gossips.
and backbiting and that sort of thing. It is an incredibly dense read that creates a picture of a community. Our final book, the one on class that I want to talk about, is also the book that I just recently finished, and that is Marking Time by Elizabeth Jane Howard, which is the second book in the Cazalet Chronicles. Indeed, I would actually recommend, from what I've read so far, the entire series. And this is talking about aristocracy during the Second World War, but that isn't really what the books are about. The book is looking at this family who have fought in the First World War, and they haven't really come out of that unscathed, and even 20 plus years later are dealing with the fallout from that. And that is what a lot of the first book is about, and how they do deal with that, what they can do for the community, and as well as having everything going on in their own personal lives. Side note, still hate the character of Edward. Indeed, if I could hate the character of Edward any more in the second book, then Elizabeth Jane Howard really worked hard to make me do that. I think that this is a great evocation of the way that they behaved at the time. And even though this book was 500 plus pages, I read 400 pages in one day. It reads very quickly. There is something so compulsive about being in these people's lives and seeing what's going on with them. And the way that the author has separated the characters means that you get to see them at different parts of the country, experiencing different things that went on during the war, and keeping certain family members in the countryside meant that really they became observers to everything that was going on outside of that. And Home Place, the central house that they all come back to, felt very much like the sun that they were all orbiting around as they travelled off to different parts of the world. But I think in terms of class, Elizabeth Jane Howard did a very good job of exploring that. I suppose from there, we can head straight into our currently reading, as I have done, and just talk about a few more books that I read.
Wonderful.
This week, going backwards, obviously. So the one that I read before that was Jane and Prudence by Barbara Pym, which I suppose I could also say links to class in a certain type of way. If I wanted to make this focused on something, Jane is a vicar's wife, and Prudence is a friend that she met when she was in university or college. I can't remember how they describe it. Prudence is described as having so many affairs that it's practically an occupation. And Jane really wants to get her settled down and keeps giving her potential suitors. And there's a great scene in the first chapter when they're talking to each other, and Prudence mentions being upset about one person, and Jane has no memory of her ever going out with him. And then throughout the book, we get to see Prudence and the way that her attraction wanes incredibly quickly, and the men that she'll go to. And as I say, Jane is just constantly trying to be this vicar's wife, and she knows she's not doing a very good job at it. One of the things, like linking back to where I mentioned Anthony Trollope previously, this book references Anthony Trollope so much. On page, Barbara Pym writes in the book that Jane had imagined that life was going to be how it had been written in one of the Chronicles of Barsetshire, references the characters. And even like, you don't have to have read those books, but having read those books, you get like,
really enriches it.
Yeah. And I think that that's something this author does a lot. She'll mention another book that's clearly she's riffed off with this book. There isn't really much plot to it. It is just a couple of 100 pages of these two friends alternating between each character and talking about their lives as Jane tries to get Prudence married off. Prudence doesn't really want to be married off, talking about the affairs that this widower has, who Jane thinks if she gets the widower together with Prudence, then it might, solve all of their problems because he had loads of affairs, she has loads of affairs, put them together and, well, apparently affairs will stop. I don't always want to read Barbara Pym, but when I do read Barbara Pym, I have a good time. If that makes any sense.
Good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Like I said last year, I realized I don't want to read her every single month, but like pacing myself, I've yet to find one where I've been like, oh, you really let me down, Barbara.
This book sounds really good.
She evokes spring, like just sitting down somewhere, like you go to the pub, you order yourself a nice little white wine spritzer, you go outside to the pub garden, you get your Barbara Pym out your bag, and you just have
What is that?
What? Don't know. The voices just come to me. I'm practically
I love
possessed
it.
at this point.
I love it.
Ask anybody. I just slip in and out of them as I get more comfortable with this. I just
I love it, Charlie. Keep going.
anyway.
What's your next one?
Prior to Jane and Prudence, I listened. Well, this is a lie. I started listening to this book back in November, but because I listened to it so sparingly, just here and there, I only just finished reading How to Be Champion by Sarah Millican.
Oh.
And this is a biography of an
Non-fiction,
autobiography of
Charlie.
hers that she wrote, I think about 10 years ago now. I listened to it back then. What had happened was I'd been listening to the same Victoria Wood stand-up show on Spotify so many times, and then I was switching between that and another stand-up show I'd found by another comedian I liked, and I thought, you know what, let's re-listen to Sarah Millican. This is her giving her autobiography alongside tips on how to be champion and how to get through those darker moments. But it was funny. I think if you've seen or listened to any of her stand-up shows in the past, then you will come across a lot of the material. And I think that that's one of my biggest criticisms from the first time, was that a lot of the book has information in there that you've already heard. I mean, I know that a lot of comedians do this. You know, they find a joke that works and then they'll reiterate it on several different platforms and that sort of thing. So I've got no problem with that. But it did kind of sometimes feel a bit like going over old ground with it. Prior to that, the final book, well, the first one that I read since last we spoke to each other, was Lyra's Oxford by Philip Pullman. And
oh, yeah, you wanted to get to that.
This was one of the books that's, you know, it's only a short story set between The Amber Spyglass and
so that's not the new one?
The Secret Commonwealth. No, I've got that still to read. This expands the world a little. We get to hear more of the mythology and history of Lyra's Oxford. And then I looked through my book and I found out that I have previously read Serpentine, which was another one of the books between The Amber Spyglass and The Secret Commonwealth. And I might have to reread it before going into that one. I'm already trying to find out whether I need to read La Belle Sauvage. It's one of those things where I know that I didn't have a good impression of it the first time around. I'm like, do I reread it now that I'm enjoying Philip Pullman, or do I just leave it and just go straight into the big book? Then it's actually been about a week since I finished a book, and that is because I've finally undertaken 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami.
I am shocked you've started it finally. This is the beast that's sat on your shelves for such a long time.
So, as you know, I had the builders in. I had to empty my room of books. And so I decided, because I knew it was going to be a long time before I'd have my books back, just to keep 2 huge books off my shelves and then 1 little one for a palette cleanser. And so
that's wise.
The 2 big books I chose were 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami and The Secret Commonwealth by Philip Pullman. And I started 1Q84 first because that's, like you've just said, the book that sat on my shelves for the longest. You ever had that moment where you're like, I can see why you sat on my shelves for a long time?
Is it good though? Are you enjoying it? How are your feelings?
There's something that keeps me reading it. At the same time, there's a lot that annoys me about it. I'm now 250 pages in, and you're only just beginning to get an inclination of how the 2 characters' lives connect to each other. Each chapter is telling the story of one character, and they alternate. And it's only, like I say, the most recent one that you're beginning to get the idea of why they're connected. One of them seems to have slipped into a parallel world that she is calling 1Q84. The other one is supposedly, I'm imagining, I don't know for sure, in the regular world, and he is editing a manuscript for this young woman, and the story seems to be having things related to this other world that this character's stuck in. Then I look at it and I'm like, I'm 250 pages into this book. This book's 1,157 pages in this edition. I know that this one's separated into 3 volumes, but so there's a lot of story to get through yet. Oddly, I was thinking how it feels quite Dickensian in scope in having such a huge tome, and maybe Haruki Murakami is taking the time to tell the tale to its fullest potential. One of the things I haven't liked is his preoccupation with breasts, and the one female character, the female perspective we have in this book, I think every single chapter we have mentioned her breasts and her examining her breasts and the way she strips off her clothes and examines herself. And I'm just there like, does this really go on?
So it's kind of It's
people
kind of
really look at
belittling.
themselves this closely. Sorry, what did you say?
I said it, so it's belittling those characters. You feel like it's reducing them to physicality.
That's how I feel upon reading it at the moment, because we're 250 pages in and I've heard about this character's breasts a lot.
So do you feel like she's more two-dimensional? She's a flatter sort of character compared to some of the other characters?
I do wonder about Haruki Murakami's writing of women. Yes.
Yeah.
I think there are some conversations that she has that, I'm glad that she's not talking about men, but then there are some that definitely have those pitfalls. But as with everything, we will see.
Right, so the first book I'm currently reading is Margo's Got Money Troubles, which is by Rufi Thorpe, which is one that I've been saying that I wanted to get to because this is going to be turned into a movie. Yeah, this is the one that's I mentioned it that is going to be turned into a movie in May. I think it's coming out. Margo, very early doors in the book. She's living in a shared flat with some other people, two other people, and she's a student. She has an encounter where she sort of gets embroiled in this relationship with the married professor, which is quite interesting because she's not really hugely attracted to him. It's quite interesting. Obviously, it's a power play of him being a professor and her being a student. She sort of finds herself pregnant. This is very, very early doors, I'm going to say this. So I haven't actually even got to much further than this. But because she's pregnant, and she's struggling with money, she can't pay her bills. And apparently, this is the bit I haven't got to, she ends up setting up like an OnlyFans. The bit that I've been listening to is very interesting. It jumps the perspective of it. So, like, obviously you hear from like first person, second person, third person, but in this book you jump around perspectives as you're listening to it, which can sort of like it. When I was like, because I'm not just physically reading it with my eyes, I haven't got a physical copy, I'm obviously listening to it. It jolts you around a little bit. Normally that would bother me in a book, but it actually doesn't. I did start to get into my rhythm of it, although I have paused listening to it because I jumped into my next currently reading. I've paused reading Margo's Got Money Troubles because I'm currently reading Agent Zoe by Clare Mulley, which is very, very interesting because we're going to be talking about this book in the next week's podcast, because we've got an interview with Clare Mulley. She's coming onto the podcast. For those of you that don't know, Clare Mulley was shortlisted for the Women's Prize for Non-Fiction last year. I've already read this last year, but as Claire's coming onto the pod, I wanted to re-listen to it. It's non-fiction about Elżbieta Zawacka's life, and she was, as you can tell from the title, Agent Zoe. She was a Polish resistance fighter, and it's so interesting. Elżbieta was just such a fascinating woman, and this book, even though it's non-fiction, I love how Clare has put so much heart into this. I'm loving this even more on the re-listen. I feel like because I'm dedicating more time to it. Last year I read it amongst 16 other of the other books. Phenomenal woman, and it's very feminist in its themes. I can't wait to talk to Clare about it.
I'm still waiting to find a copy of it and get it done by next week, so I might be listening to the audiobook on my way into work and home, but I am looking forward to getting to that one and getting to converse with Clare about that amongst other things.
So should we go into books we've picked up recently, and then we'll do
We can do, yeah.
I went out fairly recently, and me and my sister Emily, we went shopping, and she loves charity shopping. So I've got MaudMartha by Gwendolyn Brooks. Gwendolyn Brooks is a poet. Do you know Gwendolyn? You must, I'm sure you do.
I've heard of her, yes.
This is the only novel that she's actually published, and I'm very excited to read it. Amidst the crumbling taverns and overgrown yards, she dreams of New York, romance, and her future. She admires dandelions, learns to drink coffee, falls in love, decorates her kitchenette, visits the jungly hovel, hears speakers on campus guts chickens, buys hats and gives birth. But her lighter-skinned husband has dreams too of the Foxy Cats Club and other women and war. I'm excited to read it. The next book I picked up was one that I've been wanting to read for ages, and because I spotted it in the charity shop, I treated myself to it. It is Wellness by Nathan Hill. Have you read any Nathan Hill?
I read his very first book when it was hugely popular.
What was his first book?
Was it The Nix?
Yeah, that's right,
Yeah. And so that was one that before the book came out, they were talking about how it was, going to be this huge novel of the year. I don't know whether the film came out, but they were talking about how film rights had already been sold for it and what the book was going to be about. And then, naturally, I read it, and it exists.
It was meh. Yeah,
that's a good word for it. I liked it, but I didn't understand all the plaudits that it was receiving. And so when I heard about this one, I was like, maybe the writer has grown and come up with something that will astound me, but I don't know.
Yeah, this one, It says, when Jack and Elizabeth meet as students in the 90s, they quickly join forces, both eager to claim a place in Chicago's thriving underground art scene with a kindred spirit. And then it says, fast forward to 20 years of married life, Jack and Elizabeth find themselves struggling to recognise one another, and no longer youthful dreamers are forced to face their demons, from unfulfilling career ambitions to painful memories of their own dysfunctional families. In the process, each must undertake separate and personal excavations or risk losing the best thing in their lives, each other. I mean, I think as well, because it mentioned the 90s, and I love a book sort of partly set in that time. So yeah, because I grew up in the 90s. So yeah, that's cool. That's neat. How about what books did you pick up, Charlie?
So mine are both library books, because I just thought, maybe I'll want some sort of, again, palate cleanser from the two hefty books that I chose from my shelves. And last week it looked like it was going to be a lot longer than I originally anticipated. I was feeling in a bit of a cozy crime style murder mystery mood, and I saw this book, and it was the blurb that got me. So it's Murder by the Minster by Helen Cox, which is set in York. It's a librarian who is enjoying a quiet life. She likes a cup of Lady Grey tea and a good book and a glass of wine with a best friend, but then she ends up getting accused of murder. And this is the first in a series, and the character is going to be trying to prove why she did not commit the murder.
That sounds amazing.
And then we have Buckeye by Patrick Ryan, which I have heard about. I considered buying this when we were all in Bath and Bristol for the Booktuber meetup, and I didn't. And then I saw it at the library and decided to pick it up, because I'm pretty sure it's more about an entire town and a community than just one person. And I like those sorts of books.
And again, that would relate very well to the Bridgerton.
Maybe, I wouldn't know.
Just saying.
Yeah, so I decided that I wanted to get that one as well. And then last night on Instagram, I saw Ben of Ben Reads Good saying that this is one he feels like he could recommend to anyone. So I thought, well, I have it here, and I feel like I'm not going to read the entirety of 1Q84 in one go. I think that I'm going to want some books to intersperse there so I don't get tired of it. So
you have to let me know, because that's one I've been interested in for a while.
I will do. So they're just the two that I picked up from the library last week.
So do you want to talk about happy moments then, Charlie?
Yes, and I'll go first if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Because mine relates to the library, and I've just mentioned my library books. And so if you didn't know, in England, we have PLR payments, and that is a small fund set aside for writers to receive money from the books that have been borrowed from libraries that year. And for a few years now, I have not been making any money from that. My books haven't been getting borrowed to the extent that PLR have had any need to pay me. This coming Thursday marks 1 year since the release of Mistakes Mean Murder, and I am very glad to say that in that time, people have been borrowing my books more from the libraries, and because of that, it's meant that I finally got, not a lot, not a huge amount, like it might cover the cost of 3 cups of coffee, but it's just the fact that people have been taking my books out of the library again, which has meant that I got this, notice of payment and notice of which books were getting taken out of the library, what were my most popular books. So Mistakes Mean Murder did very well, and Heir to Murder did very well, Our Doris did very well, and oddly I even got a few for the poetry collection. The reason I say oddly is because I believe there's only one copy of that in circulation at the libraries, so it was the fact that it had been taken out a few times. Was very nice indeed. I'm always heartened when people read my books, whether they like them or dislike them.
Links in the description.
Glad that you gave me the chance. So yes, that was my happy moment of the week. And
Charlie's
it was related to libraries,
and
it was related to money. So
yes. Charlie's books will be linked in the description.
Anyway, Charlie, what were your happy moments of the week?
So I finally finished doing the squares. I've made all the squares. I haven't, because I was poorly, brilliant. So I literally was sat on the sofa. There's nothing much else I could do other than crochet.
The reason I'm saying it's brilliant is because last week you were on 48.
For those watching, so I've laid them all out on the bed this morning. This is the photo that I cut out the background.
Yeah.
So anyone watching, so you can see all the squares that are laid out on my massive bed. But yeah, so I haven't actually stitched them together yet, but I've laid them all out because I know, with the view that I will be stitching them hopefully today and tomorrow. Because I really want to get the blanket finished for Richard's birthday, which is on Friday. which
Oh,
so as you're listening to this, it would have already happened. I've actually managed to stitch 196 squares. I thought, which is mental. It is
it really
mental.
is. Yeah, oh my goodness.
But also the funny thing is I laid them all out because anyone that's crocheting, there's all these things as well. Again, I'm continuing my crochet journey learning. I had to block them because apparently I learned all about blocking. So
Okay.
blocking, I don't know anyone that knows this. Seaming the squares, it's like changing the fibers within the crochet, and it's something
Yes.
that when for knitters and crochet people, if you block your work, it makes it last better. It makes it something.
Okay.
It also makes it look better apparently. So I literally, yeah. So I'd finished all the squares and I blocked them all out, but then I put them all on the bed, and then I realised I'd done too many, so I've now got like an extra, I'd miscalculated it. So because I'm not the best at maths, Charlie knows this, and so somehow when I started, my tension was obviously a lot like
Looser.
no, the opposite. It's tighter.
Oh,
So then the more I've done, some of the squares, they're not all the same size. The more recent ones obviously
more
but the ones
uniform.
I started with were a lot smaller. So I was thinking, how's this going to work? But luckily, all the bigger ones, there's enough to cover the bed. So actually, the smaller ones I put aside in a box. I would have made it work anyway. I've still got to stitch them together. But yeah, that's my mission today, is to stitch them all together. But it's happy because I've
Wow.
managed to complete the amount of
That
squares in
is
time
a great amount of work. Well done.
with squares to make a secondary single blanket. And then the second thing that I'm going to mention is Oscar, because I'm very, very proud of my eldest. I'm proud of both of my children, but yeah, my eldest is currently on placement, and I'm so, so proud of how well they're doing. So yeah, they are training to be a nurse. I cannot believe of how well they're doing. They've been telling me about some of the things they've achieved. I just think they're brilliant. They're doing 13-hour long days and they've never had a job before. So to me, that's quite impressive. So yeah, I just think they're brilliant. They're my one of my little heroes. Do you want to say goodbye? Thank you everybody for all your wonderful comments and your feedback about the podcast. We've been really loving hearing from you guys. So again, let's drop in the comments anything that you want to tell us about your week, about how you're doing, any book to screen adaptations, continue that theme.
Yeah. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, even in the Discord. And
Follow the Instagram.
yeah, sorry, you can follow the Instagram. I forgot that bit. Like, share, and subscribe, as I say every week now, apparently, because I've just become that type of person. Either way, it's been a really long time since I've had a cup of tea, so I'm going to say ta